Hi, I'm Mark Gray. Today I'm going to show you how to get 3D virtual reality out of your Kodak PixPro using Adobe Premiere. I've already made a video pretty comprehensive about how to do it using Final Cut Pro, which I prefer for normal editing. But actually for VR, Premiere is a little bit better. Little background if you're coming in cold. The cameras I use for this is the Kodak PixPro cameras. They come in a pair, they sit back to back, and they're meant to shoot a complete 360 spherical video. When you watch it in the proper Google Cardboard or whatever, you can look all around and get virtual reality. What I do, instead of mounting them back to back, is I mount them side by side like this. That way, they simulate the interocular distance of your two eyes and give you 3D. You don't get 360 because there's no cameras pointing back here, but you can look all around with your 3D headset on, and it really feels like you're there in 3D in virtual reality for the front half of the hemisphere. This is my newest mount that I just invented. My normal mount that I've been selling for a few months is this one. It's got a place for both cameras that are the right distance apart, and it's got these holes that allow you to power the camera externally from an external battery. They also allow you to access the micro SD cards without unmounting your whole camera. And it's got a 1/4 screw on the bottom, so you can mount it on your tripod, your selfie stick, your monopod, whatever kind of rig you want. This is my newest rig I just invented, which has got no screw on the bottom, but it's got this pole so you can mount it on a C-stand. So you can put it in a grip head on a C-stand and arm it right into right where you want. Maybe you're going to do a simulated person, so you just mount it right there, and then their hands are operating here, and you get their point of view without having to have a tripod, right here going through them. Anyway, that's my newest idea. I'll put this on my website soon. You can get all of my 3D mounts at rocketpictures.net/3D. You can also find links to all kinds of other resources of other videos I've done about 3D, VR, and where to buy all this stuff, even the cameras, even the gimbals, everything. So check that out, rocketpictures.net/3D. Okay, let's get into the workflow of what to do once you've got the stuff out of the camera. Now, I've already downloaded the camera and stitched the files. I'm not going to get too much into that. But basically the way it works is, here's a folder called YTSLA Mixer. YouTube Space LA had a VR mixer a couple of weeks ago, so I shot some VR with my system here with these cameras, but on a gimbal, so I was able to move around and keep it nice and level. So coming out of the camera, the files look like this. Now you see I've already labeled them blue or red. The blue ones from this camera 113 come from the left eye camera, and the red ones come from the right eye camera. And you can tell they're different cameras because they have a different file number. But then if you sort by time, they shuffle like a deck of cards and you get red, blue, pretty much. The clocks are set like 5 seconds apart, so they should pair up pretty nicely. And the longer shots they do here. The shorter shots sometimes up here, they don't necessarily. But basically, the way you stitch them together is you use Kodak's PixPro software. I don't want to go into too much detail because this software is really not very good. You have to push the buttons way too many times. But it works. And it works better and more simply and for free than something more elaborate like, what's the one? Well, I don't want to diss any other software, but this is free and it works for my method. It just takes a few steps. So if we take whatever pair, like here's shot 12, now you can tell that the left eye is the left eye because you can see the other camera. So the left eye can see the right eye camera, and then the right eye can see the left eye camera there in the periphery, okay? So we take our left and right eye, and then we drag them both in to the stitching software. Now you could use these to browse for other ones, but you don't need to, just drag them right in, and you click OK. That's 2 extra steps you don't need to do. Now to make sure that they're in sync, you click Audio Sync, and that uses the audio to make sure they're exactly starting at the same time. And these are both in sync. They don't have to adjust it at all, so that's nice. Then you can adjust, you can trim the shot. If you know there's like an ugly tail that you don't want, you can look around and say, okay, I only need it till there. Because time is money. All of this stuff takes an age. And then you click Export, and then you have to then browse, which is a very Windowsy thing to have to do, to the folder that you want your stuff to go into, and make a new folder, and then you have to name it. And I would name it like whatever the file is, and then you have to click save, which is way too many steps. And then after you've done that, you have to then also click OK. So Kodak, that's way too many unnecessary steps. I should be able to drag these files in, and they go, and it should be one button with a check mark. Like, do you want to pair these? Yes. Now for my method, you don't have to worry about the calibration for the stitch, which is what this calibration control is all about, where you can adjust, how the stitch goes together, because the stitch doesn't matter. So just make sure that's defaulted back to 0. Anyway, I've already done this, which is good because this took a couple of days of me sitting here doing other things while this rendered, because you can't batch process them. Anyway, enough complaining about Kodak. Those guys know my feelings. The camera files are here, but the already stitched files are here. Okay? So when they're stitched together, they look like this. This middle part is what you saw with your left eye, and the side parts is what you saw with your right eye, but sliced in half. Okay? Now, here comes the technique to show you how to do this with Adobe Premiere to get that into 3D. Okay. I've already loaded all these shots here into Premiere Pro. Now, I don't want to edit the whole thing here because that'll take forever. I just want to put in like 1 or 2 shots just to show you. So I want to create a new sequence. I'm just going to drag. If I wanted to use all of these, I could just select all of them and drag them in here and create a sequence. But I don't want to make a whole giant thing. I just want to do a little test to show how it works. Let's take one shot and we'll drag it in. And that automatically makes this new sequence into exactly the right format. So if we choose it here and say Properties, we can see it's 3840 by 1920, which is exactly 2 by 1, which is 4K equirectangular 360. I could export this and put it on YouTube right now, and it would give me a 360 video, but it would be weird to be the same front and back. That's not what we want. But we're in the right direction. So we take our video here, we cut it in the normal way, make an edit. I'm not even going to bother looking at it. So let's take another shot and drag it in. Maybe that one looks pretty good. Let's drag it in. And then I want to, cut off the head of it there with that little girl before she knows what's going on, before she starts acting. So I can just shorten the head there. And, in Final Cut Pro, that would just close the gap. But here I have to select the gap and then delete it. Anyway, all right, I've made a little tiny thing. Let's chop the end off that to make it even shorter. So we've got about a 32-second video, okay? And if I play it, it doesn't really want to play. It's a bit sluggish because of the memory limitations of this computer and how much it takes to do 4K. See, it'll play for a while, then it'll get a little bit stodgy. This is why you need the fastest possible computer to really make this stuff work well. Okay. Let's say I've edited the whole thing and now I want to make it 3D. All we got to do when we're editing is just concentrate on that middle chunk, that middle square. That's going to wrap around our head and give us the 180-degree hemisphere in 3D. So now that we decide that's how we want it to look, we've got all our ins and out points, all our transitions, all our everything. We want to now take that and make it 3D. Okay. Let's make a new sequence. New sequence. And we're going to call it 3D test. Okay, and don't worry about the settings again, because those are going to automatically be set. And this was our string out here, this number 12. So we're just going to take that and drag it in to our 3D test. This clip does not match the sequence settings. Those are the arbitrary, just default settings. Change the sequence to match the clip settings. Yes. So now here we are, 2 by 1. The right frame rate, the right everything. But it's still not 3D. 3D works by having the same equirectangular spherical video, top and bottom. The top is your left eye and the bottom is your right eye. So, the first thing we have to do is change the shape of this project. So we find it here, 3D test. Don't know why it's there in alphabetical order. And if we control click or right click on it, we can get the sequence settings. We want to change our sequence settings. See, now it's 3840 by 1920, which is a 2 by 1, which is right for spherical, but we want to make it 3840 by 3840. You see, now it's vertical 1 by 1. And there's this message about how the preview files that have been generated so far are going to be deleted. It doesn't matter. Okay, so now we've got a square movie with our skinny movie around the middle. We need to make a copy of that, so I'm going to Option drag that up to the next line. I have 1 audio track and 2 video tracks, okay? Now, because the left eye is always on top, I just kind of keep that mentally in my head. This left eye, I'm going to take this top track here, and I want to shift it up. So all we have to do is choose Effect Controls here, and these are all the controls for our thing. We want to move this 960 pixels, or half its height up. So I'm going to change the Y coordinate to 960. This is the part you might want to stop and write this down. This is the X coordinate, which is left and right, and this is the Y coordinate, okay? The whole thing is 3840 by 3840. So the middle pixel, the middle of this whole square is 1920. That's where everything defaults to. So we're going to shift the Y up 960. So we subtract 960, which gives us 960. And that goes up. We want to take the bottom one, the right eye, and make it go down by 960. So we say 1920 plus 960, which is 2880. Okay, there we go. So now our left is up exactly the right amount, and our right is down exactly the right amount. But they're still identical. We need to now shift the right eye over so that we're seeing the right eye portion of it. And for that, Adobe has this great tool called Offset, which I never know what folder it's in, so I just type Offset. There it is. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to drag it just into the right eye, just like that. Okay? So now, this again is X and Y. We want to change the X that way. We want to move it half the width of the whole thing. It's 3840Y, so half the width is 1920. So 1920 minus 1920 equals, let's not always see the same hands, 0. So if we do that, it'll shift over. Did you detect that shift there? It looks the same, but it's not. The image that's on the sides up here, the left eye, is now in the middle down here in the right eye. Okay? So now if we zoom in a little bit to like 50%, and we can scroll up and down, you see the left eye has this view of the woman. Okay? Try to make a mental picture of that. You can see that guy's head behind her. And then the right eye in the lower frame has this image. Now you can't quite see him there. Okay? And she's shifted over. She's farther left. See the exit sign is right over the middle of her head to the right of that strap on the viewer. If you go to the left eye, now the exit sign is way to the other side of that viewer. And that parallax, that difference between where things are near and far, is exactly what 3D is. That's all there is to it. These two eyes you have in your head see two different views, and that's what gives you 3D of the real world. You simulate that on video, and now we've got 3D. And that's going to be the same looking all the way around. Now, because of the lenses are like this, when you look to the side, the left and right are very close to each other, so you won't see as much pronounced depth on the side. You'll see the most depth in the very middle. But as things come and go, it's a very realistic effect. Okay, if we exported this right now, we would get 3D and that'd be fine, but we want to clean it up. We don't want to see what's behind us, because now if we turned around in this whole spherical video, this would be proper 3D in front, but back there we would see opposite 3D, where near things are far and far things are near, and our brains might explode. Your results may vary. We don't want that. We want to crop them off, okay? And again, there's a filter called Crop, which we can just take and drag onto both of these layers, okay? I'm going to crop the left eye first. So the crop control works as a percentage. Now, half of the width of the whole frame is the middle. We want that. So we're going to cut a quarter off of both sides, because 2 quarters equals a half, right? So if we say 25%, that will crop off the left side perfectly. Then we go to the right side and go 25% there as well. And then that's cropped off perfectly. There's probably a way to copy that and then paste it on the other thing. In fact, I'm sure there is, but I kind of forget. It's like paste attributes or something. But this is not a course about how to do Adobe Premiere. It's about how to do, how to crop properly and how to get my 3D technique. So anyway, we do that, and we can crop both sides. Boom. So now that's perfect. Now when we look at it in our 3D goggles, it'll be 3D in the front and just black in the back. But maybe we don't want to waste that extra space back there. Maybe we want to have a little ad. So if someone is going to, go to the trouble of turning around, they'll see a little message like our website or something. So I'll just take my logo and stick it in there. So I stuck it in right there. Rocket logo. Is that the right one? Yes. So I'm just going to drop that on the next layer. And I'm going to stretch it out to fill the whole length of my show. Now remember, this one clip here is really my whole edited show. So once I get this all sorted, I could go back in there, re-edit that whole show, and then pop back out to the 3Dified version, and the whole thing would be 3Dified. Okay, so my Rocket Pictures logo, I need to make a copy of that because I want it top and bottom. Okay, so we want to make the top one go up. So again, we go up here to position, and we want to go Y minus 960, so that ends up being 960. And then for the bottom version, we want to go down by 960. So 960 plus 1920 is 2880. Okay, but now we don't want it in front, we want it all the way around in the back. So we want to use our offset command again. So offset, drag that onto both of them. Okay, so now we want to shift our offset. Now you see, it says here the center is at 337. So if we just made that 1920, which is what it seems to make sense, that's going to be in the wrong place. So we want to add 337 plus 1920, which gives us 2257. Okay, I did the math ahead of time. I'm not actually that smart. And there we go. So now it's split perfectly on both sides, which will join together behind our head to meet us. Okay, do the same for the back. 2257 offset on the back. And the thing about offset that's different than moving is it pushes it back around the other side. So now when we watch this in our goggles, it'll give us my logo at the 6 o'clock position. We turn all the way around. And it'll appear to be, a few feet ahead because that's sort of where the basic plane of focus is. Okay, so the next step we want to do is to export the whole thing. Once we've finished it and we decide we like it, it plays the way we want, and all that jazz, we just go File and then Export Media. Now here's where, again, you want to write some of this down and get some of the numbers right. You want to export, the default here is just wrong. It's 720 by 480. That's not right at all. So we want to choose the right codec for starters. I like an Apple ProRes 422, which gives you an uncompressed master file. Now you could make a compressed 4K file, which will be easy for you to carry around and upload and stuff, but YouTube is going to recompress it anyway. Okay, so you might as well give them the biggest file you can and let them compress it just once. Because if you compress it, they're going to compress it again, then it's compressed twice. And with VR, you are fighting an uphill battle of resolution. The sharpness will kill you. So keep it as big and burly as you can and until YouTube dumbs it down for you. Okay, so ProRes 422, we want to match source for the size, which gives us 3840, 3840, and the right frame rate and everything else. And then once you figure this out, there's so many controls here, it's so complicated. Once you get it the way you want to go up here and save the setting. I've already saved my setting as 3D VR, but I wanted you to find it with me. The other important thing this does, you go down to the bottom here and you choose this video is VR. And you want to choose stereoscopic over under. That's very important. Because if you do this with Adobe Premiere, you can skip the whole step of using the metadata injector that you have to do for Final Cut Pro when you do this process. So right there is a big saving of a step, which I like about Adobe for this. Oh, one last thing to make sure to check is the name and where it's going. It's going to default to the last place you save, but just click the name here. It doesn't ask you after you click export. You have to set it before you click export. Another Windowsy thing I don't like about this. But you could give it a name here, and then you choose what folder you want it in, and then you hit save, and then you can either queue it, and it'll go into like a waiting list and only start exporting when it has resources available. You can go back to editing if you want, or just hit export, which will tie up your Premiere for a while it does it, but then you can just forget about it. Now this will take a long time. It's all down to processing power and how fast your video card is and all that jazz. This is about a 32-second clip we've made here, and so far it's 0%. So we'll see how long it takes before it actually gets. Okay, it started out now 6 hours and 41 minutes. That will revise. And again, if you have a really fast Windows computer you're doing this on, like a gaming computer with a real kick-ass graphics card, or you have a new Mac Tower, it's going to go a lot faster. And, you know, honestly, I wouldn't even recommend trying this unless you've got a lot of time or a very, very powerful computer. But if you're into 3D and virtual reality, you probably do have all of those things. So good luck to you. All right. As I said before, if you want to get any of my 3D mounts or links to any of my other 3D resources, my how-to videos, including this video, you want to tell your friend to watch it, but you forget the link, just go to rocketpictures.net/3D. That's where I've put all of my 3D VR resources, where you can buy all these different mounts that I make, including the back-to-back mount here for the regular 360 for the PixPro that lets you, again, power the cameras from the bottom, which the standard Kodak thing doesn't. You can get this other bigger one that lets you do the 3D with the two cameras and mount a battery in here. That makes the whole thing big enough to go on a gimbal. And again, this is the regular 3D mount, which you can get if you buy both these together. There's kind of a discount. Anyway, my email is also on that website, so if you have questions about 3D and how to do it, you could put them there, or you could put them in the comments of this video. All right, I think that's it, guys. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe and all that jazz. Be sure to subscribe to my chum, Professor Puppet, who you may know as a real great educator of our time. And also, I invite you to listen to our new podcast, Crafty Time, with Mark and Fiona, where me and my daughter Fiona talk to creators about how they create things. It's not just about arts and crafts and construction paper. It's actually mostly about film and video and filmmaking and writing, and it's about all kinds of creativity. So check out Crafty Time. Check out my website to get these 3D parts if you want, and let me know in the comments if any of these techniques work for you or if you want to try anything else. All right, thanks for watching.